Holy fucking shit. This is Leon Lovelace with the Unstoppable Force, and I fucking wrote down the wrong address so I could attend this Green Party event with Ajamu Baraka, I believe his name is. His name is pretty hard to pronounce, especially if you're not normally used to reading it or hearing it a lot. But alright, the event's halfway over. This is a fucking fail, but hopefully I could still record and talk to some people that attend the event, and hopefully him too, just get some reporting on this event. Alright.
Time at least that seriously took class into the equation and really took it to Wall Street and the 1%, and literally, physically, and that was just everything I was dreaming about, right? So I just went in head first into that movement. The wonderful thing about Occupy is it brought a lot of new activists as well as longtime activists together to break bread in a way that was unprecedented in North Carolina, and I'm sure this happened in many other states. It's really important in states like ours for this to happen. There's so many different cities where this could happen. And a lot of us started doing a lot of work in Charlotte because we call this the Wall Street of the South. There's a lot of financial institutions there, the second to Wall Street per capita in the United States. Protested Bank of America and other things. So we had some amazing protests and other events in Charlotte, and it is during one of our biggest protests, which was called the March on Wall Street South. This happened just before the DNC, Democratic National Convention, in 2012 that was hosted in Charlotte. Guess who actually provided the jump-starter funds for the DNC? Anybody guess? $10 million? Duke Energy. Very good. Duke Energy gave a $10 million jump-starter loan. So this is an example of Duke Energy that people associate with McCory, associate with Republican rule, and they play both sides. This is the hustle. So when I talk about the Democratic Party, because I'm going to say a couple of things about the Democratic Party, I'm not talking about, and please, if you voted or if you worked on a Democratic campaign, please do not take it personally, because this is not a personal thing. I'm talking about the corporate forces in the ruling class that is at the very power structure of the Democratic Party. So please do not take that to heart. So it is at the DNC demonstrations that I met Jill Stein, Dr. Jill Stein. She came, she was the only person running for office, or maybe even in office, or any other politician, that spoke at the March on Wall Street South, and also came to our encampment. And I will be the first to admit this is a pretty rowdy crowd, and she took that in stride and just had this tremendous humility. And that really left an impression upon me. I later worked with her during the global climate convergence, and that was in 2014. And she had just a really remarkable leadership qualities that she could actually, we had all these different kinds of folks from the left and progressives, even anarchists, what have you, and she was able to bring all these different folks together with all these different sort of ideas and concepts and tactics together in a way that is very unusual. And so that really told me, like, I told myself, hey, if Dr. Stein runs again in 2016, I'm going to do whatever I can in my power to support her. And the rest is history with that. So fast forward to 2015. That was the beginnings of the Bernie revolution, right? So for us who were involved in Occupy and other movements that led up to Occupy, and talking about the 1%, and talking about class, and talking about these things, it was a vindication. It was a vindication of the movement and of Occupy against the naysayers who said, well, all of these concepts that you're talking about aren't they really didn't, Occupy was disorganized. It really didn't leave an indelible impact upon the American mind. And that was anything but the truth, actually. A lot of people don't know it, but it was actually Occupy Wall Street Media, the original media team, that actually created the People for Bernie. So, in many ways, this was a vindication. However, I was also deeply concerned. One of the reasons why I was deeply concerned is people that I knew through Occupy, through other movements, that had totally sworn off the Democratic Party as a corporate party, began to sort of change shift their focus about this. They began to shift their focus away from focusing on looking at Obama's wars and dirty wars in Afghanistan, if you guys have seen that documentary, and shifting away from, we were talking about Wall Street, but shifting away from looking at direct actions and taking it to the street, and sort of putting all their hopes and dreams in this Bernie campaign. And it became deeply concerning to us. It was a source of great concern to seasoned radicals who did not go along with the hype. Because while on one level we knew that this campaign would be something big, in fact it became something bigger, I think, than even Bernie or any of us knew would become. And yet, although we saw this insurgency and we knew that it would be crushed from within inside the Democratic Party by the very DNC leadership that supposedly was happy to see it. And we knew that after this happened that Bernie Sanders would make the grand bargain of endorsing Hillary Clinton, and thus funneling all of this potentially revolutionary energy back into a party ruled by the very corporate interests and ruling class that the Sanders campaign claimed to stand against. This would truly be the final straw for me, because it was the last straw, because I had seen the Democratic Party do this time and time again, and what I would call the machine, it's not really just, I think, the DNC, it's actually this whole machine that even includes what we call the nonprofit industrial complex and various organizations. And I had seen it in a continuation of the Reagan mandate during the Clinton era. And I'd seen it during the war on the poor that was continued under Clinton and the gutting of social programs. I had seen it with a large portion of the former progressive left who turned a blind eye to the ruthless corporate crackdown on union strike waves in the 90s. I'd seen it in the Omnibus Crime Bill and the dismantling of any resistance to austerity from the Congressional Black Caucus. I had seen it with the dismantling of the anti-war movements. I had seen it in the hijacking of the Occupy movements by institutions in the big tent of the Democratic Party machine by giving them activist jobs. And I knew just how absolutely necessary it would be after this capitulation to the Clinton campaign. Clinton, who was the Wall Street pick, not Donald Trump, even though he is working, he's pretty much outsourced his administration to the Heritage Foundation, for there would be an answer and a platform to those who were still seeking a way forward for those progressive issues that they held dear and they sought to advance in the Bernie campaign. And not only to reflect, but to develop even more forward towards discussions about the war economy, discussions about imperialism and fascism, discussions about socialism and what is real socialism and what is reform and what is revolution. And lastly, I saw something in Jill and other New Green Party leadership that showed a movement towards serious party building. I even think even more than the Nader campaign. And to have a vision and a platform and unite progressive forces towards building a party, not just galvanizing the same base for more or less of a protest vote. So Ajamu did a great job of talking about our platform, and I'll sort of skip through that, but I basically want to say that what brought me to wasn't just that, but I had to take a look at that platform, and Number one, it was the fact that the Green Party is an anti-war party. That is really what separates the wheat from the chaff, in my opinion. And it separates those who are truly seeking progress from those who are willing at some point to sell us down the river. And why is this significant? Because foreign policy of a militaristic and imperialistic government ultimately reflects the domestic policy. A government and rulers fixated on upholding a war machine of unprecedented proportions must at some point gut expenses for social programs. And of course that war machine is literally, not metaphorically, literally mirrored in the streets to put down those who rise up against a collapsing social system, such as in the streets of Ferguson or Baltimore, or in the streets of Charlotte that I was standing with during the Charlotte uprising last September. And we see this very policy in the streets of Durham every day with increasingly militaristic police force in the streets. Many Greens are also outspoken anti-imperialists, which means we stand against the extortion of resources and wealth from the exploited nations for a handful of richer nations. We're also for universal health care, as Ajamu talked about. The Stein campaign and Greens support truth, reconciliation, and reparations for slavery, the new Jim Crow, and other atrocities that have been historically wrought upon people of color. Most Greens strongly believe that our energy should not only be sustainable, but public. And we can talk to you more about that during the Q&A. So we say no to air energy for profit. And we also say to Duke Energy, no to shutoffs. We're going to really push for a campaign for people to really take it to Duke Energy because they've been committing felonious acts and polluting our water. And certainly not least, actually this is a platform that was co-authored by some of our North Carolina Green Party members. We have chosen to adopt a language rejecting the system of capitalism itself, because it is hypocritical to uphold peace and democracy and sustainability and say people and planet and peace over profit, and not boldly call for an end to the very system that stands against all of those things. There are many other platform issues like calling for the ending of the drug war, prison and mass incarceration abolition, cancellation of student debt, free education, and so forth, that attracted me and many other members to the Green Party platform. So it'd be wonderful if our society looked at social movements with the same sort of focus that we do electoral politics. And so a lot of people have asked me, hey, Tony, you're usually you're in activism, what brought you into the Green Party? Well, it's absolutely true that a political party cannot itself create the conditions for a social movement, like the movement for Black Lives. However, what happens is that these movements and uprisings and various outbursts of political resistance often reach a point at which they face burnout or are often co-opted. We saw some of this in Ferguson recently with some other campaigns that came around that, in my opinion, were truly just disgraceful, but I'll shut up about that. What we need is for a broad but uncompromising platform to bring many movements for progress together and advance a vision for a future that will at the very least open up the necessary political space for the people to take. So right now what we've seen is for decades we've seen sort of this lesser evilism and also this increasing sort of non-profit, sort of outsourcing of all of these social problems to nonprofits. The reason why lesser evilism is incapable of stopping the march towards the right is because it necessarily hijacks and or silences movements to process, movements in the process, thereby stalling the movement for independent power. And thus the same machine uses social institutions and refocuses all of that beautiful potential revolutionary power back into the rightward march of the Democratic Party. So how do we steer away from this? The only way is to do the work of building and supporting a long, protracted struggle, as Ajamu said, for independent power. And here in North Carolina, we are building just that. So I'll finish up. North Carolina Green Party, we've gone from, in under a year, we've gone from 1 local, regional local, to 4 going on 5. So that's pretty fantastic. We have actually restructured the party to be a dues-paying membership, and the reason why we're doing that is not to some people have argued, well, that's not inclusive. Well, actually, it is more inclusive because we actually work on a sliding scale. I mean, we don't want anyone's income to be standing in the way of them joining. However, it's very important that it's a people power, a people-run party is actually funded by its own constituents, not just a handful of the wealthier donors. And it's very important that folks like me are accountable to those people. So when you put some of your own, put some of your own dough into that, you think about it a little bit more, right? So it's not like we're trying to just, do whatever we want to do. These are necessary things that any party that needs to be run by the people and for the people has to do. Even the IWW Wobblies, they had dues that are much higher than what our dues are. Way back in the turn of the century, so people were working slave labor 15, 16 hours a day, and they were fighting just for less time. So this has been a long tradition for any party or organization that needs to build an independent party to be a dues-paying party. If we double our membership, then we can do a lot more things. We could potentially have interns. We could potentially have more folks out there petitioning and actually pay some of them. If we triple our membership, which is totally possible in the next year or so, year or two, then we could actually maybe have a couple of offices. We could have an office here in Durham. Maybe we could have an office in Charlotte, North Carolina, or Asheville. So there's all kinds of possibilities that could open up from us having more membership. So I invite any of you who are interested in joining the North Carolina Party, the Green Party, or supporting us to definitely check out our table, check out our website, come join us tomorrow. Looks like Ajamu has stepped out for a second, so I can answer any quick questions about North Carolina Green Party before he answers his questions. Do you have any questions for Ajamu? But do you have any questions for me?
So I would like to know a little bit more about the Green Party in terms of the community development, community involvement, and what are your long-term goals?
Do you mind?
Reading that?
There you go.
Yes, I do.
Good evening.
Hey.
So I wanted to know a little bit more about the Green Party. What are the long-term goals for the community, as well as the motivation for the people, in addition to the outlook in terms of equality for all?
Okay. Well, would you like to answer that? Since you're back, we can start our Q&A if you'd like.
Long-term goals. But I think your question was probably more directed toward the work here in North Carolina, correct? Yeah. Because long-term goals, we talked a little bit about, and that is we need fundamental change here in this country. That we're not going to be able to address issues of inequality, exploitation, within the context of this existing system. So the question becomes, how do we get to that point, that end point, if you will, of complete social transformation? And that question is the question that they're going to be talking about this weekend. How we build a more effective instrument with this Green Party. How does a party connect up with the community? How does a party help to create this progressive social bloc that includes the Green Party and labor and women's groups and black folks and Latino folks and everybody who has a perspective and a commitment for revolutionary change. So, you know, that's what we have to think about and debate and struggle for.
Terrific, and also like some of our long-term goals can include, number one, we need to get ballot access here in North Carolina. North Carolina is, for those of you who don't know, we're not only big time in voter suppression, we're also big time in ballot access suppression. Actually, North Carolina has the highest requirement of any state in the nation. It's close to 100,000 signatures that we have to get. If you want some perspective, the average state has 10,000 or less signatures. So if you want to help us by coming down the pipe that may take this down to 10,000, which is completely doable for North Carolina. Despite that, we still had more write-in votes than most states had with actual ballot access had votes in the nation. We had at least, it was about 25. Go ahead and clap, give it up for us. We had a lot of tremendous grassroots support here, and we're hoping a lot of folks actually felt a little bit down at the end of the election. That's one thing I want to ask Ajamu about. So we are having like an upswing again of interest in some of our most active members. So I guess one of my questions for Ajamu is, this is really affected me as well. You gave such a great talk the day after the election, because I think a lot of people were like, what happened? I didn't even think Trump was thinking what happened, personally. But a lot of people were like, well, what's going on here? And a lot of Greens that were expecting, I think, a little bit better turnout saw that this unprecedented fear factor campaign that was really tens of millions, Nader really never had to deal with that, worked in many ways. So I'd like for you to maybe address that, and also maybe address that you said you've been doing this for 4 decades. So how do you keep the fire burning? Because a lot of people after this campaign just felt a little down, and I can completely empathize with that. So how do you keep the fire burning, and how do you address the outcomes of this this election to Greens who are hoping for a little bit more?
Thank you, Tony. Well, you know, this is a difficult struggle. I mean, this is difficult work when you're trying to engage in the kind of change that we have to bring about, because you're up against some pretty powerful forces. But you know, what we have to do, and what I do, is to remember those who came before me, to remember the sacrifices and struggles that they engaged in. And so at those moments when I feel a little down, or I'm frustrated because we're not making the kind of progress that I think that we should make, I remember those individuals. I remember people in my family, you know, and I remember the kind of encouragement that they gave me and others to keep our sort of eyes on the prize, and to remind ourselves that if we really are concerned about these conditions that degrade and dehumanize people, that we commit ourselves to changing those conditions so that no other generation after us would experience those things. So, you know, I believe in the possibility of the people. I see historical changes. I've seen changes that have taken place. We've seen some of those changes being reversed. But I truly believe, it's more than just a slogan to me, that we are in fact on the right side of history. That this system is unsustainable. That what we have to do, though, is to envision something that goes beyond this and believe in the possibility of change. And it's going to be difficult. It's going to be reversals. But, you know, that's part of the process. So, Tony, after the election, you referring to the live stream we did the day after the election, you said something about internet, but I did a live stream the morning after the election that you know, a lot of people saw. And people said, "Oh, you look happy." Well, I wasn't happy, but my position was, we fought a good fight. We have this reactionary now, this more open reactionary that's in power. Let's look at what kinds of opportunities we have now. We know it's going to be difficult. We know it's going to be a more intense fight. But, there's always a silver lining with all cliches. And that was that basically people out of necessity were going to start looking at things differently. And they did. And so what we had to do as Green Party, as progressives, was to figure out how to get out on front of that motion. And for a moment, we were doing that, but in my opinion, some of the budding resistance activity got co-opted by, elements connected to the Democratic Party. But that's all right, because it was still important to have oppositional expressions. But those expressions have to be independent. And you've noticed that in the absence of some of the larger organizations and the party itself generating more actions, we haven't seen much, have we? So that's a reflection of the weaknesses of our movement. And another example of why we have to build these independent structures and not be concerned about where we may be at the moment. Because, we saw just today and yesterday what happened in the UK. That, they said that the labor is no way that they can be competitive. But you had people who went into the party, who had a vision, who believed that they could, in fact, take back the party and make it progressive again. And look at where they are today, okay? Tony was saying that Bernie was surprised by his success, and I think maybe he was to a certain extent. But I'm gonna tell you something, I wasn't. I knew from the very beginning that the people in this country were ready for real change. And that if Bernie stayed true to a progressive message, that he was going to make some real progress and some real inroads. Now, my issue with Bernie, and he came out during the campaign, was, I had written some stuff that said basically, Bernie, the people are ready for real progressive leadership. You don't have to be a reactionary when it comes to U.S. foreign policy. The people are prepared to support peace. The people are prepared to take an anti-imperialist position. Don't let your progressiveness in at the borders of the U.S. So that was my critique. That don't talk about the Saudis need to get their hands dirty. The Saudis are out there, their hands are dripping with blood. That it's time for us now to have real progressive leadership, and the people were prepared for that. So, I knew that there was going to be success. I wanted Bernie to be a real progressive. I wanted Bernie to explain in a different kind of way what his ideal democratic socialism was. It was more than just the welfare statism of some of the Nordic countries. He had an opportunity to engage the people in that way. And to talk about the fact that, when you talk about socialism, you're not talking about just how the economy is organized. You're talking about a new kind of value system, a new kind of vision of what kind of people we can be. A new ethical foundation that is built. So let's engage the best of the potential of our people. Let's have that conversation. The people are ready. The people are, I think people almost instinctively believe that they can be better than what they are. But we have to be able to provide some alternatives. Because what the system is trying to do is to make us believe there is no alternative. That all we can do is just sort of nibble at the edges, okay? All we can do is try to reform this system, make it more effective, open up opportunities for more people. That's all BS. The way the inner logic of capital at this level of this development, the creation of these low-wage jobs and the creation of whole populations now that are basically redundant, superfluous, disposable. That's a reflection of the internal logic of this system. Now it's just being more obvious here in the U.S. But that's been the reality that people have had to experience all over the world up until the last decade. Now we are experiencing that stuff here. Just like now we are experiencing, in a more open way, neo-fascism. But, you know, where was the opposition and the outrage to the neo-fascist conditions that this government helped to impose on people around the world? So, you know, I believe that we can do more, and we will do more, and that's what keeps me going. Yes, sir.
In your talk, the Global South, Brother Tony also mentioned, you know, the need to have an anti-war stance and party and activism. What are your thoughts and what is your current analysis on what's happening in Venezuela? Not only in reference to the U.S.'s, you know, history of destabilizing these governments, but also how the mainstream corporate media, right, you know, portrays these types of governments and countries, distorts the truth here. So what are your thoughts and analysis on specifically Venezuela, what's going on right now?
Thank you, my brother. Now, I think people need to know, my dear brother here, Brother Lamont, he also ran for the vice presidency of the United States of America. You know, one of my concerns was when, you remember when Wesley Clark talked about the fact that he was exposed to the plan by the it ended up being the Obama administration, also by the Bush administration, that had a list of countries that he was going to destabilize and destroy. Now, Venezuela wasn't on that particular list, but I knew that as they moved down that list, that they were going to turn their attention to Venezuela. And my concern for that is based on the fact that, you know, we knew that there was changes taking place in Latin America, and that the key country was in fact Venezuela, and that if there was going to be an attempt to reverse the progress that was being made in Latin America, they were going to keep on Venezuela. And so we were trying to wake people up to the fact that we had to be in a position to in fact defend Venezuela. But because we have so much confusion here in this country among progressives and the so-called left, we couldn't generate that kind of stance, so that when the attack started, we had the inevitable confusion among the left, who were talking about, you know, well, because of their own contradictions, these things are happening, and blah, blah, blah. And so when, you know, it's time for us to stand up and support countries that find themselves in the crosshairs of U.S. imperialism, we have failed to, in fact, do that. Look, you know, back in the day, you know, we were very clear that despite whatever internal contradictions may be in a particular country, we respected the idea of sovereignty. We understood that as citizens in an oppressor nation, the main oppressor nation, that it would be a contradiction for us to be on the same side of that oppressor nation when that oppressor nation was targeting another nation. So we stood in solidarity with those countries. Today, we see this absurd and strange situation where various nations are being undermined by U.S. imperialism, and either we're not doing anything about it, but we also sort of justify why that's happening. It is strange. And then when you try to raise the issues and the questions, then we have this simplistic, dialogue among ourselves in which, if you're concerned about what is happening in Syria, then you must be pro-Putin and pro-Assad and all of that. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. If you are concerned about Venezuela, then you must be about a dictatorship. Then you tell people, well, they've been having elections. How can that be a dictatorship? So we have a lot of confusion. Now, one thing that we have done in direct response to your question is that we, a few of us, have launched a new formation called the Black Alliance for Peace. And we launched that April the 4th in commemoration of the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's very famous speech on April the 4th, 1967, where he broke ranks with the Democrat Party and came out in opposition to the Vietnam War. So we said on April the 4th of this year, now is the time to rebuild a black anti-war presence here in this country. And we launched the Black Alliance for Peace. We believe that, historically, the black community has been the most consistently anti-war up until 2008. Now that we have started to come out of this 8-year fog under our black president, people are thinking and thinking critically again. And so now we have an opportunity. We're not going to condemn people who got behind Obama, that's understandable. But now that people are thinking and thinking critically, now it's time for us to reassume that position as part of the process of building the broader anti-war movement here in this country. So we are building the Black Alliance for Peace. I encourage you to go to our website to see what we've been doing. We have issued with the United National Anti-War Coalition a joint statement on Venezuela. We have just recently been involved in publicizing what was a tremendous victory in Colombia. How many people know what was happening in Colombia over the last month? Raise your hand. Okay, and that's all right. You know why? Because it was a complete whiteout, if you will, of what was happening in that country. For people who might not know, Colombia has the third largest black community or black population outside of Africa. Number 1 is Brazil, number 2 is the US, and number 3 is Colombia. And what happened in Colombia was that black folks basically rose up and organized a national strike against the conditions that they've been facing for decades. And I can talk a lot about what's happening in Colombia because some of you know, many of you don't know, up until I ran for vice president, I was in fact living in Colombia. We didn't tell people about that. And that's why I live when I go back in July. Anyway, so here we had an uprising in that country. And what they did is something that none of us have seen almost ever until you go back to the Paris Commune. They took the port city of Buenaventura. They took the entire city and they held it for 22 days. Nothing went in and nothing went out. It cost the government millions of dollars. And the government tried to suppress it by sending in their special police forces. And the people engaged in these pitched battles almost every night. Hundreds were injured. Many people went to jail. But in the end, they forced the government to negotiate, and they came to a resolution last Monday, a tremendous victory on the part of the people in Colombia. So, please go to Black Alliance for Peace, we were one of the few outlets that were trying to publicize that. And you can see we had reports coming from on the ground, and you can see the evolution of that struggle in Colombia. So check it out.
All right, I'm back from the Green Party event, and I wasn't able to record the whole speech because also my battery died, so I really need to get another battery, at least one more battery for when I'm covering public events. I also need a big tripod and an extender so I could really mount this on a tripod instead of holding it in my hands, because that's really not really good way to try to shoot video, especially when I'm trying to shoot something that's longer than 5-10 minutes, something like that. But I haven't reviewed the film yet, so I'm gonna do that later too.